Entertainment World Soldier here, and I am back to talk about Star Trek Discovery Season 3, Episode 1, and my thoughts on this episode. I'm going to start off this review with my thoughts on the other two seasons first. I thought the first season was garbage. Sorry, pure and simply was. And the second season, well, I didn't really watch all the way through. I only got to episode 3 before I was just like, I'm done. It was a terrible, terrible series. And I am starting to see why Discovery is in such a mess, which it is in a mess, people. The viewership is definitely down, and I think a lot of Star Trek fans like myself are just leaving because, these showrunners have no idea what they're doing and have no respect for Star Trek overall. But this is season 3. I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say, listen, if this series is a good series, I will say it's a good series. I am not here just to shit on Star Trek for the fun of it. Okay, if this show does something good, I will say it does something good. But that's where I am right now. The last two seasons, and by the way, I did watch the final episode of season 2 of Discovery, and it didn't really win me over either. It was completely stupid. The angel suit never really made sense, and just the entire battle didn't make sense either. It's like they tried again. The problem with these people who are running Star Trek is they think it's Star Wars because of all the fighters they had. That was ridiculous in Star Trek. Anyway, that's a different rant. If they do that again, I'll bring that up. But yeah, it seems like these people just don't understand what Star Trek is. But let's get on with this episode. So, was it a good episode? No, but it wasn't a terrible episode. There were things I liked, there were things I disliked. There was something I completely hated, which was the entire reason for the Federation falling apart, which was so boring, and there's just ways you can kind of, disprove that would ever work for the reason the Federation would fall apart. I'm sorry, it's just it was a dumb reason. The new character Brooks, he was alright. I'm not gonna he wasn't amazing, but he hasn't pissed me off yet. He seems a bit funny, but yeah, there is also that problem again. This show is trying to be the Orville. Discovery. That's embarrassing. You're copying the Orville, even though the Orville is a copy of Star Trek. And the Orville is an amazing show. If you have not seen the Orville, you need to watch that show. It's fucking amazing, man. And that is why a lot of people consider that Star Trek and they don't consider this Star Trek, because it's just... Oh god, the comedy in this was cringe. And in Orville, because it's Seth MacFarlane, man, he knows how to do comedy. The writers of Discovery, no, you don't know how to do it. I'm sorry. And this episode just proves it again. You don't know what comedy is. You really don't. And you really got to stop doing that. I think the CGI in this episode, it was okay. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but it was fine. But the overall story of this episode, nah, it was bad. But again, this is only episode 1. We've got apparently 10 more, I think. So it may get better over time. But from experience, I'm not bloody holding my breath. So let's get on with the spoiler part of this review. But overall, I think this episode was bad. I'm not saying it's terrible, but it wasn't great. But let's get on with the spoiler part. So the episode starts off with a bird clock with some guy sleeping on his bed. Turns out his bed falls down to 1,000,000 pieces because it's... I don't know what the hell the technology is called, but it's just... Technology just has appear from everywhere. Just like appears from nowhere. And this guy, who apparently turns out to be what's left of Starfleet on this old communication station, and he's just sitting there waiting for someone to come back. And we all know who he's waiting for because, come on, this is Discovery. We all know that. Then we go to a scene where Brooks is being chased by another alien ship. His ship's getting attacked. This alien wants his cargo back because Brooks stole it. And, well, Brooks is trying to save the cargo. We find out later what that cargo is. And it's kind of stupid, but fair enough, fair enough. Then a wormhole opens up and Michael Burnham appears out of it. Crashes into Brooks. Brooks' ship falls down and crashes onto the planet. Michael Burnham does everything she can to try and save herself because she's heading right for the planet. She tries to activate her shields so that she won't burn up in the atmosphere. She does crash on the planet. She gets out of the angel suit, which, by the way, I think the name is pretty stupid. The Angel. I know there's a different name for it. I think there is, but it doesn't make sense why it has wings and stuff like that. In Star Trek we've seen time traveling devices that have been a lot better. We've seen it in Voyager, with the whole time travel bureau from Starfleet. Oh, we also find out in this episode time travel has been banned because of some war that happened. And, so the technology still exists then. There's still technology to go back in time. Just because you ban something doesn't mean it stops. Example, drugs. Drugs are banned, it's still getting used. So if there's time travelling equipment out there, I think if I was Burnham, I'd go look for it, because what we find out what destroys the Federation, wouldn't it be better to go back in time and find out what happened? I mean, if there's time travel equipment out there, it would be the smartest thing to do, instead of just trying to figure it out from now. Why not go back in time and figure it out then? It makes sense. But I doubt the show's going to do that, because that would be too smart. So, yeah. Anyway, the angel suit. Michael Burnham crashes, gets out of the suit. She then tries to... she wants to make sure that everybody's still alive, because what happened in the last episode of Season 2, because apparently the entire galaxy was going to lose life. But she finds out, yes, everybody's still alive, everybody's okay, so her mission was a complete success. And then she pretty much orders the angel suit to self-destruct and go back in the wormhole, which it does, and it does explode. Now, for me, that seemed a bit stupid. You don't have that much on you, Burnham. You don't even know where Discovery is. Wouldn't it make sense to keep something that you could fly around in? Getting rid of when you're in the middle of a desert, or wherever, the middle of nowhere, you have not that much on you. Wouldn't keeping equipment make sense? I mean, I think I'm missing something because I didn't watch everything from Season 2. Maybe the suit has something wrong with it, but to me, I would have kept the angel suit, because it would have just made sense, especially not knowing where you are, not knowing the situation of where you are. It just makes sense to keep the suit, not destroy it. But she destroys it. Then she goes. It's destroyed. She then gets all the equipment together and starts walking along. Well, walking nowhere, but walking along nonetheless. She then bumps into Brooks, who starts to attack her. Michael Burnham is pretty much holding her own. We all knew she was going to win this fight. I mean, yes, they did have a standoff for a second, but yeah, we all knew that Michael Burnham was going to win that fight. Brooks and Burnham then, at the point when they're going to kill each other, stop and talk to each other. But Brooks doesn't really want to know that much about Michael Burnham. He's keeps saying he doesn't want to know, but he keeps then asking for her name, where she's from. So why not stop asking those questions, Brooks? Kind of doesn't make sense to keep asking if you don't want to know. And then Michael Burnham says to him she needs to get a communication device to find Discovery, because she can't find them, and it doesn't look like they've came at the right time. They didn't just pop out when Michael Burnham popped out. So Michael Burnham asks Brooks to help her get to some sort of communication device. Brooks then says, well, I need dilithium, because apparently, which we're going to find out later, dilithium is very hard to come by these days. And Brooks then says, if you offer me something to get more dilithium, I will help you. And he then mentions about the fact Burnham's equipment is very ancient. And then Michael says, I'll offer you this, what is it, tricorder, and it might be worth something because you say my equipment isn't, well, my equipment's old. So Brooks offers to help her. They then go back on the ship, and we find out Brooks has a cat called, what's he called? Greg or something? I didn't really pick up the name. And they then head to a city where they're going to sell Burnham's tricorder to get more dilithium, and he said he's going to promise to help Burnham get a communication device. They head to the city, and when they get there, 2 Andorian security guards scan Burnham, but turns out Burnham can't go in because she doesn't have any papers on her, and they don't trust her. Brooks then manages to convince the heads of this city, yeah, Michael Burnham has equipment on her that they might be interested in buying. So they say, okay, you can go through. There's a bit of cringe comedy in this scene as well. Michael trying to say that you're not the boss. It turns out your bosses want me to go through, and I didn't really find it funny. I didn't really think it was funny. So they go through. Turns out Brooks is betraying Burnham. He robs her of the tricorder, and Burnham gets caught by the security system because apparently he led her to a vault. And then an Orion and a Andorian come out, which turns out these are the heads of the Orion Syndicate. I think that's what it is, because in a scene later, one of the aliens says a part of the Syndicate, and the only Syndicate in Star Trek is the Orion Syndicate, so these two are a part of the Orion Syndicate. They start to question Burnham, but she's not answering the questions, so they fire some sort of gas in her face, and this scene is, it's not funny. They're trying to make it sound funny. These guys are trying to talk like, again, they're trying to do the Orville thing. They try to talk normal, you know, like Orville, they talk like they're from 2020. They're trying to do this in Star Trek. It doesn't work in Star Trek. It works in the Orville because they started off like that. And again, Seth MacFarlane knows comedy. These writers don't. Michael Burnham sounding like a moron isn't funny. It was cringe, man. It was cringe to the max. And she manages to tell the two leaders, I'm not trying to rob you. The guy who helped me, Brooks, yeah, he was the one trying to rob you. He robbed me, and I'm going to punch him in the face as soon as I see him again. We then see a scene where Brooks trying to sell the tricorder to get more dilithium. This Orion girl is like not really interested and pissed off basically. And then the alien that chased Brooks at the start of this episode finds him and asks where his cargo is. And then the Orion Syndicate then surrounds Brooks, brings Michael Burnham there. Burnham punches Brooks. And then for some reason, Burnham working with the Orions, and this random alien person points his gun at Brooks and then says, if I can't kill Brooks, can I kill Burnham? It didn't make sense. Why the Orions? I mean, again, Burnham's working with you. Wouldn't it make sense? Why aren't you protecting her? Yeah, that didn't make sense to me. Why the alien's just like, he wants to shoot somebody. What the hell's Burnham done to you? Brooks is the one who's robbed you. Yeah, it just seemed ridiculous. But Brooks and Burnham managed to grab some weapons. They fire back, killing a lot of people, basically. And for me, Burnham, you're a Starfleet officer. You shouldn't just be killing people. You have no idea who these people are. Yes, they could be members of the Orion Syndicate. Again, I'm not 10% on that. It does sound like they are part of the Syndicate, or the Orion Syndicate. But yeah, Burnham just seems very, very happy to kill people. Seems to me if you're a Starfleet officer, you should try to talk your way out of this situation. You should say to people, listen, we all know something fucked up's happened here. How about we just talk? And we'll know she doesn't. They go and find some crystals to power the ship. Well, sorry, camera fell down there. Sorry about that. So they're getting some the dilithium crystals to power the ship. Brooks then points his weapon at Burnham, saying he wants those crystals because he needs them, and he then grabs Burnham, and they transport using this portable transporter that he has. And a chase scene happens. The Orions chasing Burnham and Brooks. They kill a lot of them because they just transport right in front of Michael Burnham and Brooks, which, I mean, again, you're chasing people that have weapons that have already transported before you. Wouldn't it make sense to transport around them, not in front of them? But yeah, it was a dumb chase scene. The chase scene ends with Brooks throwing Burnham off a cliff. Unfortunately, he saves her. And yeah, the chase ends. And then Brooks brings up, well, they go for a little walk. Brooks brings up, why are you wearing that Starfleet uniform? Seems weird, as a lot of people have got, only weirdos wear that uniform nowadays, or goody two-shoes kind of people. Burnham says, what you on about? I'm Starfleet, wear Starfleet. And Brooks brings up that the Federation have fallen apart. Now, the biggest problem with this is how they've fallen apart. Now, he calls it the burn. The burn is dilithium just exploded around the galaxy. Apparently, it just became useless, or there was not enough of it to power the warp drives of ships. So, the Federation fell apart because they ran out of fuel. I mean, what the fuck? It wasn't an alien incursion, it was a massive war, a virus. No, the Federation just ran out of fuel. I mean, are you serious? So the Federation didn't come up with no other way to power their ships, no other way to travel the speed of light. No, they just gave up. Remembering, by the way, they have time travel. So nobody in the Federation said, how about we stop the burn? How about we go back and stop this? So the Federation just fell apart again because they ran out of fuel. Not communications, not ships. Again, an alien invasion that destroyed the Federation, an alien virus that destroyed the Federation, that would have made sense. The fact they run out of fuel, they still have communication. So why wouldn't the Federation just say, okay, all Starfleet ships, head to your nearest planet and guard that planet and stay together and keep fighting for the Federation? No, let's just give up and fall apart. It just doesn't make sense how just running out of fuel would destroy the Federation. It's like, again, if the world ran out of gasoline, which apparently it is running out, but there are other technologies we could use. I know people are going to say dilithium isn't fucking oil, okay? I get it, but it just means, like, if we ran out of this stuff, we'd come up with something else to replace that. I mean, wouldn't that make sense? I mean, this whole I don't get these writers in sci-fi right now. Why is fuel becoming so important to these writers nowadays? We have it in Star Wars now, where fuel doesn't it's never been an issue in Star Wars. And it's never been an issue, well, that much of an issue in Star Trek. I'm not going to say it's never been a big issue, because if you watch Voyager, they had to try and find dilithium a lot, because they were never meant to travel that far, which makes sense, but for an entire civilization to fall apart because of that, it doesn't make sense. Why would the Federation, again, not find a replacement? Because we know there are different ways to travel around the galaxy in Star Trek. The Iconians, for that matter, they had that portable transport thing where you just walk through this mirror thing and you could just walk onto any planet. I know they didn't have the technology, but the technology is there. There are other forms of travel in the Federation, like transporter technology. In Enterprise, the creator of transport said he'd get rid of starships because we'd all just transport to one part of the galaxy to another. I know a lot of people are going to get pissed off when I say this, in JJ Star Trek, you can apparently transport from fucking miles apart. Again, I know Star Trek fans, you don't like JJ. I don't like him either, but, you know, that just proves to me there were other ways that Starfleet could have fixed this situation. And it didn't really make sense. And I think it's a dumb reason. And I know it's probably not the main... Well, I think it is the main reason, but there probably are other reasons why the Federation fell apart. But Brooks does seem to indicate that, yes, dilithium was the main reason the Federation fell apart. And I just thought that sounded pretty fucking stupid. So Burnham has a little crying moment where she realises the Federation is dead, oh no, and they go back to Brooks' ship. Turns out the Orion Syndicate's waiting for them. They surround Brooks and Burnham. They want the ship, they want the cargo. I mean, the cargo for me sounded completely stupid, but we'll get to that. The alien who lost the cargo tries to open the ship, but the ship has a security code on it. And then the head of the Orion Syndicate then shoots that captain because he lost the cargo in the first place. Okay, kind of just seemed a bit harsh in my opinion just to kill him because he lost the cargo. But fair enough. They didn't ask for the code to Brooks' ship. The code is sticky. And then he spells it out for the Andorian who's using the code, using the computer system, and they open they unlock the ship. The alien that is in the ship, because it turns out it's an alien that Brooks is transporting. It's a worm, and they want it to be alive because it's best served alive. But then this worm just goes crazy and eats all the Orions. Okay, so alright, you know what the cargo is. You know this cargo is apparently dangerous because it eats the shit. It eats them all. And you don't bring any weapons to try and stun it, to catch it. It was just go there, try to grab Brooks, and then do what with the worm. It seems like these leaders, this Orion Syndicate, is stupid. Completely fucking stupid. That they came to this whole situation with no plan except just catch Brooks and hope to God the worm doesn't attack them. So the worm attacks them, kills oh, I forgot that bloody scene, haven't I? The scene, alright then. Brooks somehow has some magic ability. He brings up a flower and he heals Burnham with that flower. Because, yeah, that's in Star Trek now. Force abilities. To bring up flowers that heal you. Okay, it was a dumb scene, but I thought I should bring it up. Anyway, back to the worm. So the worm then goes crazy again after it eats all the Orion Syndicate. And then, which I'll give this episode credit, which was pretty funny, was it then tried to eat Burnham. And a part of me was just like, come on worm, just swallow, and then we can all be happy. I know a lot of people are getting pissed off when I say that, but I wish Burnham would fucking die. She's an annoying character. But Brooks manages to convince it, just spit out Burnham, she's not your enemy. The worm spits out Burnham. Turns out this woman is as nice as anything because Brooks calms it down. Burnham gets shot out a mile away. She's happy with the fact she nearly died. Okay. Brooks, goes over to see if she's alright. She says, fine, yes, she is. They then go back onto the ship where they head to a sanctuary for this worm. Burnham brings up the fact without the Federation, the people of the galaxy have just started, being criminals, and they're just breaking every law they can. There's nothing to replace the Federation. Nothing. Just criminal people have just replaced the Federation everywhere. Like, the Federation didn't survive on Earth. The Federation didn't survive anywhere. Everywhere just fell apart. Yeah, this is Kurtzman Trek, where everything is just bad for some reason, and there's not that much explanation for that. So they go to this worm sanctuary. Brooks releases the worm into the sanctuary where it's a mating season apparently, and then Brooks says to Burnham, "I'll help you," gives her a communication device to try and contact Discovery. Turns out nobody's answering, so Brooks has the idea of going somewhere more powerful than his communication device. It turns out to be an old Federation communication tower where we meet this Federation officer who doesn't consider himself a Federation officer, and Burnham goes there and meets with this guy who says, "It's a great honour to meet you, somebody from the Federation. By the way, Burnham has not brought any proof that she's in Starfleet. She's not brought any... She doesn't know where the fuck she is. She doesn't know about the burn. She doesn't know about anything. And nobody's asked her, how do you... Well, some people have asked how you don't know this. But nobody's asked for proof that she's, from the past. Like, this guy, as he's literally fucking getting all giddy over her, saying, "Oh, thank God you've come. Thank God you're from the Federation. I'm so happy to see you." It's like, does she have proof she's from Starfleet? Or doesn't she? Like, just having a uniform, an old uniform, by the way, does that... She could have bought that anywhere, man. How is this guy not asked for proof? But he just believes she's from Starfleet. He then opens up the communication device where Burnham says, "Can you look for Discovery? Discovery might be somewhere in this quadrant." Turns out this communication device has a small range of only this one sector, where the person says he only sees 2 Federation starships. So, hold on. There are 2 starship vessels left in this quadrant. So if they're Starfleet ships, why isn't there... So is Starfleet still there? Is Starfleet still working? Because you keep saying Starfleet's fallen apart. If Starfleet's fallen apart, how do you know these 2 ships are still in Starfleet? Has he communicated with these ships? Does he know the captains? We don't find out that, or anything of the sort. We just have to accept it as, yes, these 2 Federation ships are still Starfleet. Okay, but they can't find Discovery. Burnham then cries again because she may never see Discovery again. And this guy brings out a Federation flag. He then brings up that his family have served in Starfleet all their life, but he doesn't feel like he's a Federation officer because he was never given a ceremony, or he was never told by a Federation officer that he was Starfleet, even though he's been working on this Starfleet communication tower all of his life, even though he's been helping people. Like, dude, you're a member of Starfleet, trying to give Burnham this honour of saying, you can now tell this guy that he's Starfleet. It just seemed a bit shit to me. I'm sorry. It did. It just seemed boring. It just seemed shit. I didn't care about the Federation flag. Why haven't you unveiled it ages ago? Having a flag there may have helped people who come into the room to see, Yes, the Federation is still ongoing. We're still Starfleet. I don't know. It just seemed like a boring ass scene that didn't really make sense. And then Burnham says they unveil the flag. She says Starfleet is alive and well, and that she's gonna fight for, Starfleet again. And the episode ends, and then we get a nice little sneak peek of the next episode, where we see Discovery comes back and crashes on a planet. And that's the end of the episode. Again, it was a good scene. Brooks is not that bad of a character, but the story overall is bad. And again, I'm giving this series a chance, and I'm hoping that the explanation for why Starfleet fell apart will be better than they ran out of fucking gas. And that's the end of my review. If you like this review, give it a like. If you dislike this review, give it a dislike, and do comment below and tell me, did you like this episode? Do you think Discovery has a future? Or like me, do you think, yeah, it's a pretty bad show? And do think about subscribing to my channel if you like my content. It's long live CG, hail the Phantom Menace, and I hate SJWs. Bye.